Hi guys, Joye from Sharp 11 Music here, and today I'm launching a new series on the channel, something actually which I have long wanted to do, which is to talk in depth about the solos we're transcribing. As you might know, we've published so far over 300 solo transcriptions, me and Timothy, together on this channel, trying to uncover what the greatest solos we like is about. And that's just, of course, the first step, just seeing that inspiration and seeing it written out. And you can do your own analyzing, of course, but at the same time there might be a lot that you might have missed. So let's discuss that, and I hope you will learn a lot from these. We will take every time a different solo of a different artist, and we will look at which kind of factors makes this particular solo sounding so well. And there are so many parameters to consider, really. Most of us stop mostly with the melodic content or just with what notes did he or she choose over the chords, but there is so much more to discover because a solo is storytelling and there is so much dynamics and flow and the space, the phrasing, the general picture, the meta view of the solo as well, going into detail in some lines. In a good solo, there is so much to learn from it. Actually, if you would spend most of your time just studying 2 or 3 tremendously well chosen great solos, you probably have enough material for the rest of your life to start creating yourself. But that's for another video. Let's go into the first solo which kicks off this series, which is one of my all-time favorite solos. It's Michael Brecker on Common Ground live in Barcelona with the Brecker Brothers, 1992, I believe. This is basically a pop solo, but it's so rich in how Michael Brecker builds it. Mostly, if you look at a Michael Brecker solo, it's all about that super complex harmonic content which he displays, but here it's actually not. We will see a lot of other factors which made Michael Brecker such a great soloist. One disclaimer still before we start: this is such a beautiful solo which has the momentum going, and it will break my heart really to put it on pause for discussing what we are hearing. So if that's annoying, I mean, this is for the analyzing of the transcription and of the solo. If you want to hear it in full, I'll put a link to that in the description, then you can listen uninterrupted. Okay, and let's pause it here. Let's go back to the start of the solo for a moment. Listen how Michael Brecker picks up on that very last line, actually just 2 notes of Randy's solo. His brother, he just ended his solo with this 5th interval, and he takes that to start off his own solo, and then that's so beautiful. I think he kind of uses that 5th interval, and then you can hear him kind of explore that interval really inside the key. Let's listen to that once again. Okay, so, and I like that a lot. Just 2 notes, F, D, talking B flat instruments for saxophonists here. And I think that F is really great because you can hear him play for the whole time, actually pretty diatonic in C major for tenor saxophone, and he just touches one time on that F, and I think it gives a little bit of a small, very small elevation already in the storytelling he is doing. So he starts very inside on that randy interval, wandering around, very easygoing, and then you get a little slight hint of a little second part to the story with that F to D. That's how I perceive it, at least. And then let's keep on going. Okay, before we move on to the next part, which is actually that same chord progression, but it modulates to the subdominant of the key, so to F major for tenor saxophone. You heard that ascending diminished chord there, and that's the first harmony introducing a bit of a color outside of just C major, and Michael Brecker explores that beautifully. I think he might even think more of a E7 there, because like G sharp diminished is the upper structure starting from the third of E7 and then adding a flat 9. That's a G sharp dim chord. It looks a bit or sounds a bit like Michael Brecker uses it more as a E7 flat 9, just so like a secondary dominant going into A. Listen to that. A little bit altered also with the sharp 9. He uses the G sharp down but the G natural on top, so that gives more of the altered sound on a E7. Just a little thought. Doesn't really matter how he thought about it, but that's what the sound is. And then what you all notice throughout the whole solo, he uses a lot of diatonic approach notes towards the triads. He keeps it very simple, but that's something he does all the time. Here you see him use a lot of the time. Let me take quickly my tenor. He plays a lot with, you know, going around the C, just the root of our key here. That's the first one, or a little bit further. You get the G sharp dim. Again, and then the measure following that, an octave lower as well. So that's cool. Now we go to the second part, which is that chord progression into F major, which lifts it in the story. So we started easygoing. Now you get in the storytelling already a little bit more of, there's something happening there in our story. Slightly more tension, but still beautiful and rather at ease. Yes, and although we modulate it just to F, there is again that playing around the C. And then ending on the A, which is the third of F. But even before, it's around the triad of F. It's an approach note to C, and then beautifully laid out the triad. Beautiful, simple but beautiful. Again, notice again on this B flat chord how he hits perfectly home that D, which is the third of B flat, and then lays it down at F, the fifth of B flat. And then that's a part I love so much, where he bends a little bit with that B flat towards A. Then we'll get that ascending diminished chord again, but now in the key of F. Okay, and before we really go into where everything starts getting lifted and super intense, again on that ascending dim chord, I think he rather thought of that C sharp dim as A7 flat 9 or alter it. That's the notes he chose there, pretty much beautifully resolving into D. And what's also interesting is that he comes down the scale of D minor. In that first bar you still hear the B flat, which is in the 6th step degree in F major, that D minor. But then we will be transitioning back to C major, and that second bar of D, he uses a B natural. So it becomes Dorian, and that one note really sets us up. It's the pivot chord between F major and C major, that B natural. In the upper octave of the 2 bars of D minor, Michael was still in F major, and then in that scale-ish line going down in that second bar, he was in C major. Beautifully, one note just hinted towards that. And now the solo starts going into a new phase. Dennis Chambers sets it up so well, but with this simple yet super effective fill-in. Listen to that. This one could be, it could be a melody on its own, really. It's so well made by Michael Brecker. You have that great fill-in by Dennis Chambers with a lot of intensity. That's what makes it also really going. And then Michael Brecker uses actually a pentatonic scale to start. So that's a pentatonic scale. He lands on the C, the root, you know, down on a C chord, and then he starts pushing rhythmically on that C, and that's what makes it moving, really. It's a kind of hook. He repeats it, and then he narrows it a little bit more, still rhythmically moving. I think this one is really majestic, with a lot of grace notes, beautiful, very inside. We are, you know, like I told you before, we are really mostly staying inside the key. And then he repeats it a third time, and the rhythm gets even more compressed and narrowed down there. So it sounds a bit more agitated or moving. And then he goes up to that note, which is the money note for me, for Michael Brecker. That altissimo G is just goosebumps all over. Listen to that. And now we go to the next part. Okay, and that line, we've heard that kind of before, didn't we? Remember when I probably made a bit too much of a point at the start of the solo of this F? I'll show you. It's at the exact same spot that he used, basically a bit the same motive, one octave up with a variation. Let's go back now to where we were and listen to that again. Again, you know, I keep astonished about how simple the note choices are. He makes it rhythmically really interesting and with a lot of grace notes and expression. That's really what's making it so elevating, along with the amazing band. I mean, I really also need to mention James Genius. His bass playing, that sound is like, whoa, it's amazingly big, together with the intensity of Dennis Chambers, and of course the beauty of the composition and the moving of the chords in such a clever way by Mike Stern. So everybody involved really creates, you know, what makes this solo so great. Because on that, after that front key F, basically what he does is going down the scale on a G7 just diatonically, just. And you can tell that any student that those are the right notes, but it's hard to do something musical with it. And Michael Brecker, you know, shows us, besides all the amazing complex things he can do, how he also can use the most basic of tone material and make it into literal heaven for me. You know, and then we get again that G sharp diminished ascending there, and he's basically playing the roots. But what makes it so great is that he's going into the altissimo. It has a great sound. Then he goes to the G sharp, and initially actually kind of misses it, but he picks it up again, and that's what makes it so nice. Like, everybody can feel he's kind of getting wound up, and he's taking like even some risks there, and so that edginess, that's actually what makes it. If he would have played that super clean, it wouldn't have had that same resonance. Don't you think? I mean, or is it me? Just let me know in the comment section. But that's what makes it beautiful, as well as that he is kind of delayed in his resolution with that G sharp. You know, he leans into it, he kind of repeats it with those little bendings, and then when he goes to A, that's just a little bit slightly delayed into the next bar. Listen to that once again, and listen how he initially kind of misses the G sharp there. So he builds up towards that second part of the second chorus, where we modulate again to F, which is also what I told you before, very clever. You know, we already kind of went like this stepwise into new phases of excitement. We were already pretty high on excitement and energy. But this modulation just to the fourth step degree, which is basically the most simple ways of modulating. And Michael Brecker sets it up with some 16 note lines. He didn't do that a lot yet, so it becomes a bit more of faster lines. But the 16 note line there is really completely inside again. Very diatonic. It doesn't get swayed away into complex chromatics or anything. And listen again to how this fill-in of Dennis Chambers really helps Michael's line. He also does some 16ths in his snare together with Michael Brecker's line there. It, you know, it really pushes it to what will be the new high point. And then we get a new melodic phrase, which he will expand on a bit more. You know, that's a line which you kind of can see in B flat major 7, starting from the 5. You can also maybe look at it from a F major point of view. That doesn't really matter, but keep this motive in mind, because he will now start to expand on that. So he repeats that same motive there. Also, the only time, I guess, that he does a bit more of chromatic approach note. And then he simply expands on it, looks one note further and comes back down, before using the first time a blues scale. Whoa, and then you get this motive, which is a simple motive, but the fact that he uses so many grace notes in front of almost every note, I think, which makes him slightly delaying behind the beat, certainly towards that end of the phrase, but he lands really nice still. He's so aware of timing. He's not just late. I mean, but that's so nice. And then we will continue, and he uses that exact same motive once again into the altissimo. Listen to that. But on those last notes, he expands a bit more on these ending notes of that phrase. And then he does exactly what he did just a few bars before. He follows that motive by a blues scale coming down, only this time slightly more engaging or with a bit more of notes. Ooh, and then we get typical Brecker line, I would say. I cannot play it, let me try it, but I'll try to fake it. Yeah, sorry for that fake, but it's actually so great how he has this biggest explosion of the complete solo, but also kind of returning directly when he ends up into the altissimo. So a few bars before he was epic on those altissimos all out. Now he did this fast starting line going up into the altissimo, but when he lands in the altissimo, he holds back because also the band holds back. We are suddenly in this open realm of ambient sound on this D minor pedal, and then he lays down the solo beautifully. Let's listen to that. You know, and that contrast is it's the cherry on top of the cake. It's really, he goes into that altissimo, but the control of his sound and of that altissimo and of everything to really go from that high intensity altissimo, backs it down, and the last few altissimos are rather soft already. It's so controlled. It's a hard thing to do. Saxophonists will know. Certainly after such a strong solo where everything was already so crammed up or so intense. And then he starts painting in this D minor sound, Dorian sound with a lot of grace notes again. And you can suddenly hear him almost play subtony again. You can at times hear the air and the sizzle on his reed there, which is really, really nice. So we've went from a very, very bright sound, a very poppy, snappy, bright sound in the middle of his solo to a very subtony sound right at the beginning and right at the end. Whoa, what a ride that is. I think it's all about contrast and about motivic development, but in a very straightforward diatonic way. And that's a very hard thing to do. We easily get lost, I think, as improviser. I speak for myself, you know, when you try to build a solo, we always think in terms of more, and mostly the first thing to go to is harmonically more. But Michael Brecker goes here not into harmonically more, he goes into exploring more of the range, more of the intensity, more of the rhythmic density, but he stays harmonically still very, very diatonic. Just at a few moments it gets a little bit more complicated, but almost non-existing. Okay, that wraps it up for the first session. Let me think what you know of this concept, of which solos you might want me to look at and to discuss. By the way, if you're interested in becoming a better improviser yourself, we have a new online school that helps you with a personalized approach when it comes to jazz and improvisation. We totally believe that every path is unique. Everybody has his or her set of personal taste and heroes. So we developed a cycle that you can walk through and develop your own personal sound. In this system, we brought everything that makes a great improvising musician together. If you're interested in that, I'll drop a link in the description below. Thank you for watching this very first episode of Inside the Solo. I'm Jorge Reiners from Sharp 11 Music, and see you next time.